Hello ninjas, Gajo here, and I got to do a video response. Gotta talk about Damn You Hussies and Mr. Vigadeth and SMS number 1, Mr. Dave, Dorian, and Mr. Hussy. Hussy, I can tell you why. You might be a little confused. You said before that you were having some facial growth from Vigadeth, and maybe it's possibly the estrogen-induced facial hair that has sprouted forth from your face by way of a spiritual enlightenment through the universe, that it was bestowed upon you in order to make you perceive a different notion. Whatever that may be, I don't know. However, excellent points, and I want to continue on this conversation because it seems we need to. It seems, I'll just start off with Vigadeth, because that's kind of where the trail started for me. I mean, me and Dave had a little back and forth, and by doing that, it started spurring more from Kal-El Prime's video, and it just kept going, and which is good, because that's what I like to see. And seeing that makes me believe that I should continue the circle, because, well, this is originally what I enjoyed doing with the 5 awesome Transformers guys, and that's, well, I love doing that. However, we're talking about the collections and the collectability of toys, and by producing more relevant, up-to-date figures, are we sullying the old figures by giving ourselves a better, higher quality figure that may have knee joints, which would change the outcome of the entirety of the old figure that never used to be accustomed to knee joints and basically had absolutely no articulation other than maybe shoulders and head joint, and that's about it. But looking at that, I say no, I say nay, because the reason is, like you were saying before, with the different levels and entry points of collectors coming in at, that's how you need to perceive how the G1 and Classics and Prime and Animated and all the different styles of figures are going to be taken by the collector. And usually people who started off early in the 80s, I was part of like the Generation 2 Beast Wars, and then on from there. If I would have came in a little earlier, I might have had more appreciation towards G1 toys, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't want them. It just means that personally, my personal addendum is I'd rather have a higher, you know, more quality updated figure than have an old clunky figure that just doesn't do anything for me. But I'm not saying that there aren't figures that I wouldn't get from the G1 just for nostalgia purposes alone. And that's, I believe, where we need to draw the line between collectors of the collectability nature. When you're looking at a figure, and you look at a lot of the new releases that are coming out, and if you're a fan of the Beast Wars line, and you're a fan of the Beast Hunters line, or not Beast Wars, but the Beast Hunters, the Prime line, the Fall of Cybertron, the Generations that are coming out now, this is a very good time to be a collector if you're interested in that particular, you know, zone. If you're just a general avid collector of all things that transform, that are cars, and that are, you know, robots in disguise, well then you're doing pretty good. But the thing is when we start getting those figures, like they were saying with the Wheeljack, you know, there was never really another Wheeljack figure released that really brought home that feeling of Wheeljack until they came to the Generations line and he was released from the Reveal the Trio Tracks mold. And from there sparked a whole new, you know, revolution of Wheeljacks. And, you know, even the Prime one with its, you know, its own nostalgia points still kind of lacks in a certain gradient, because you're not bringing home the original feel of that character. That character never developed throughout the years like the other characters did, like Optimus Prime and Bumblebee and Megatron and Starscream. The 4 main figures that you usually see is Starscream, Optimus Prime, Megatron, and Bumblebee, mostly. I mean, there's some Hotshot, there's some Rodimus, and there's all kinds of other figures mixed into there. but those are the ones you see the most of appear and reappear throughout the years, and mostly Optimus Prime because he's always the leader most of the time. And you know, that's why I'm saying that when you see the development of a figure go from the old Optimus Prime mold from the G1 coming now down to the Beast Hunters mold now, and you see the evolution of how that went through, you know, classics, and how that went through a G1 stage, and how it went through a movie toy stage, and it's just evolved. You know, you start to have more of you start to have more of an appreciation towards a well-made figure that you aesthetically think is more pleasing, as opposed to the old G1 figure. And that's why I believe that, you know, a G1 Rodimus, as you said, is not nearly as collectible. However, someone with a Rodimus fetish, such as our wonderful lesbian friend Vigadeth, he would mostly want to get a G1 Rodimus, and then a Hot Rod, and a Protector Armor, and a Classics, and a Henkai Rodimus, and I mean, he would put all that together because he particularly likes that figure, that toy, that brand, that mold, that you know, personification. He likes that, and when he has an opportunity to buy different variants of that personification, I believe that's where we start to redeem certain characteristics about what we like in our toys. I also enjoy rubber tires. However, what I can say is that I will take a well-made wheel over a rubber tire, without saying. There's a lot of figures that come off as being, you know, a decent style wheel or tire. You know, with Beast Hunter's Smokescreen, you can see we have a nice, you know, wheel here. It does roll, and it, you know, continues to be a good figure. However, you know, once you talk about clearance and does that wheel hold up, and if you push it across the table, will it continue going for a reasonable amount of distance without having to stop or get stuck on its own moving parts and such like that. That's where I go. I'm over functionality. You know, I want them to build a quality toy which still retains its functionality and awesomeness without sacrificing, you know, elements of what that figure truly is. You know, when you get rid of wrist articulation because of a certain transformation, because of it being part of a structural thing, or you get rid of the form of the figure because you need to add on the extra parts because you don't know where else to put them, because of, you know, backpack syndrome or shell former syndrome or whatever you want to call it, where it's basically a protoform like a robot inside of a shell. When you start looking at it that way, you know, then you're just nitpicking about stuff. I look at it as an overall functionality. Does this toy achieve what it is meant to achieve? Are you getting a passable vehicle mode, and are you getting a passable robot mode that you know, shows characteristics of the toy that it's supposed to be and the figure and character that it's representing? And if you can do those two things, then you can make a toy that is worth buying. Now, when you start looking at a lot of these movie toys, and you look at the difference between what they're showing you in the theaters and what they're giving you in the box, there's a discernible difference in quality and, you know, paint and applications and stuff, because you're giving us a character model that is way above a higher standard than you can ever put it, at a CGI level, a humanoid CGI level, and then you're trying to make a dumbed-down cartoon toy version of it. Well, that doesn't look good. There was a lot of good toys throughout the line that pulled off, like Ironhide, and, you know, I personally like the Ultimate Optimus Prime, but that's just me. But the Voyager class Optimus Prime mold was pretty decent. There's a few, like I said, there's a handful of good movie toys that came out of the movie line that no one's going to argue with, and that are probably in many people's collections, and particularly those particular ones. However, that's not without saying that the reason why those toys are popular is because they're toys that are an updated version of a character that was somebody's favorite a long time ago. And when you start seeing stuff like that, that's where you start bringing back the fandom, and that's where we start going back into the breaking off and coming back on to the collection era. older collectors are going to appreciate the older toys more because they probably had them at one point in time. It's more of a nostalgia factor to own a toy that is basically a brick with little holes in it that represent a robot and possibly a fire truck at the same time. Speaking of Inferno, mostly. But when you start looking at what that character represents to that person back in 1985, 1984, and, you know, that's when you start looking at, okay, that figure represents Optimus Prime for him. And then nowadays, a Voyager class Prime from the Prime line is this 8-year-old's Optimus Prime. You show him a G1 Optimus Prime, he might pick it out, but he's probably not going to think it's an Optimus Prime. Same thing with Bumblebee, same thing with any other figure you look at. And that's why, you know, when you were mentioning the Wheeljack, I started to notice that as a character develops in its toy, not just on the screen, but as a toy, if you change the toy too much, where you start to lose the viscosity of what that character originally was, that is when you start to break down the franchise. And that's where I start seeing a lot of figures, a lot of characters that were, you know, in the old G1 series movie or throughout the eras where it was doing pretty well as a show, break down and turn into garbage characters that they use in the movie that get thrown in, thrown out, and then they become nothing again. That's where you start to see a lot of fandom break off because they get disappointed, they don't understand, they don't want to understand because they're just insulted by the fact that you're destroying what the character used to be. Now I understand the movie toys didn't really destroy characters, but they reaffirmed them in more of a realistic aspect as opposed to a cartoon or fantasy aspect. But that's why Transformers Prime is doing so well, because you're taking back to hone what, you know, used to be the standards in Transformers, the basics. And that's probably why it's doing so well, because they're not throwing 400 different Transformers at you. You know, they're keeping it basic. And that's why it's doing so well. And the Beast Hunters, from what I saw from the episode, looks pretty good. They're not really ruining, you know, and sullying the TV show's storyline by going in this direction. However, I really do hope that they either continue it, or if they end it, you know, that sucks. But hey, at least we have that memory of what Transformers Prime was. And we can say that Transformers Prime and the movies were what regenerated the fandom. And that's why we're getting younger fans that are picking up on these figures. Those will be the G1 toys for them. When they look back 10, 20, 30 years at these figures, and they see them going online for $50 to $100, they'll appreciate why that costs that much, as opposed to the older collectors that are seeing the Prime and toys now and the Fall of Cybertron toys. They're saying that they're garbage, they're not like the old ones, they're just trying to, you know, copy something that they did back then. Well, that may be true to a certain degree, but what they're doing is they're rehoning that block of clay into something better. They're making it updated for a new fan base. And they're bringing back that fan base by using their old tactics and what originally drew their original fan base in. And by doing that, but changing it ever so slightly to make it updated and brilliant and better in more ways than one, and it does more good than harm, you start attracting a whole new crowd and a whole new appreciation towards what basically could have died off and became the scourge of the entertainment and toy industry. Just like G.I. Joe. Do you see G.I. Joe plugging the shelves like it used to back in the 80s and 90s? No, nothing like that. Transformers definitely isn't the way it used to be either. However, what I am saying is that it's beginning to gain more steam again. It's building up again. It's becoming more of a product of society again, like it used to be, where it used to be embedded in society as this is a thing. G.I. Joe's, Transformers, Josie and the Pussycats, Scooby-Doo, Hanna-Barbera, all those things were part of society. Transformers kind of went off the map, went off the grid in society standards. It wasn't the talk of the town. It was kind of a nerdy underground geek thing to be enjoying Transformers and such like that. But then it's starting to come back as more of a, this is a, societal, everybody's enjoying this. It's got something for everyone, from the young to the old. And that's why I enjoy the fact that they're bringing more than just one toy and breaking it off into, okay, this has to be a deluxe, that has to be a Voyager. No, we're going to make a Cyberverse, a deluxe, and a leader, or a Cyberverse and a Voyager, or a deluxe and a Cyberverse of that toy, because what they're doing is they're trying to bring the market into different age groups at the same time. And to bring them into that lifelong customer that they want. You may think of it, in a money purpose if you want, but that's the point. They want to sell you their product, because if they don't make money, they can't keep making more TV shows. They can't keep selling more ideas. All they can keep doing is remaking the old same toys that we're already getting. And we don't want that. We want them to design toys like this instead of just repainting, a knockout or a breakdown or whatever. Yeah, knockout. Just instead of repainting the knockout mold from the Prime line and calling it arms micron and such. Even though I'm not saying that's a bad idea, they completely redid the mold and made it look more like its character. That's what I enjoy. Why they chose the RID mold for the Bumblebee and the Beast Hunters, I don't understand. They could have went with the first edition mold and updated it with the spikies, and that would have looked gorgeous too. Regardless, I'm not going to argue because it still looks good. But the thing is that I enjoy how we're kind of going into this same forward momentum like we did back when the G1 came out. 1984, Transformers came out. 1985, Season 2 came out. 1985 as well to 1986, the movie came out. And that is where we had a premise where Optimus Prime died. And the whole revolutionary world changed because we had this big hero character that could never die. He always gets through die. And then they have Rodimus come in for the last 2 seasons. They bring Optimus Prime back and they end it. Okay, in America at least. They come up with Generation 2 toys, and then I was born and old enough to understand what Transformers were, who they were. They're playing repeats. I was watching the old G1 episodes, having my G2 toys, and then they bring out Beast Hunters. And with a lot of collectors back then, that's where they hit the wall and they're like, I don't want to be a part of this. They don't like that. I enjoyed the episodes of Beast Hunters, but when I was a kid, even as a kid, I still didn't really. I preferred the truck and the car over the robot cat that transforms. I mean, it was still a good idea and it brought in a whole new audience base, but like I said, you gotta stick to your roots. Transformers are robots in disguise. The most obvious choice for them is to pick a vehicular mode or some sort of machinery or some sort of item. Whether it be like Soundwave, where he is a boombox cassette recorder thing, or whether it be like Perceptor, where he's a microscope, or Optimus Prime, he's a truck, or Smokescreen is a car. Bumblebee is a bug. I mean, a VW bug, bug essentially. That is where you start having that nice, interlooping ideas. But when you start breaking it down to the Beast stuff, that doesn't make too much sense. Bringing in Beast Hunters is now, where it's not like, okay, we're going to completely change the premise of Transformers. Everybody's going to transform into robot monkeys and kitties and puppies. No, it's actually there's these dragon transformer ninja things, whatever, that are completely, not associated with the Decepticons and Autobots directly, that are coming to screw everybody's plans up. That's awesome. I like that, because it's different, and they're not changing themselves into monkeys and kitties and puppies. No, they're changing how they did that back then, because they realized that the Beast Hunters, Beast Machines era didn't really do as well as it could have. But then they bring in the Unicron trilogy, and that's where they were the whole Transformer base rebuilt, animated came out, locked them in, got a movie deal, then that's where we started seeing War for Cybertron, Generations toys, Classics toys, and when they started doing that, that's when the whole steamship started sailing again, because they were going back to what was the reason why they became popular in the first place, those original characters. And this is why I like what you're saying about the whole, you know, destroying and diluting of a character. Is no, it's not destroying and diluting of a character if they don't mess it up. And that, you know, can be contradicted and comprehended many different ways by many different people. But essentially, if you're still making Optimus Prime a red semi-truck that looks half decent, and he still has his same head and same features, people are going to love that unless it looks like crap. And then that will change their mind. You know, when you start changing characters completely from what they were into what they are, that's when you lose fan base. But I digress. For the most part, I enjoy how they are trying to reaffirm those G1 characters in a different stylized setting from that video game standpoint with the Generations line. That makes me smile, because we're going to be getting 2 new triple changers. And that's going to be awesome. We're going to get an Astro Train. That's going to be even more awesome. To get an Astro Train, again, an updated triple changer that's probably going to be just as good as the Blitzwing and Springer that I saw as well. So, in all reality, I say that it just depends on where you're going with, you know, the character, the figure, and how it... Like, Smokescreen was never really a big character that was like around all the time, that was like up front and noticed. And then we bring him in Transformers Prime, and he's kind of like starts becoming kind of a main role character, which creates a fan base for him, gets him a new toy, gets him a nice toy, and now he's coming out with a masterpiece. I mean, they couldn't roll that all together at a better time. They're starting to understand this is what we want, and we will make it known. And that comes from the fact that we have the internet and the power of communication and society as a group, as a Transformers community. We have the power to help Hasbro, and I mean help as in a nice way, understand that we don't want mech tech. We want better weapons. We want, you know, weapons that are going to be noticeably better. We don't want clicky-click weapons. We want robots that are functionally going to look like the figure and the character, and they're going to be a really nice vehicle, or something like that. There's always a sacrifice in the mold. That always happens. And it's all based on size, and it's all based on how they do it. But lately, I've been seeing a lot less sacrifices and a lot more quality figures coming out from the Fall of Cybertron line. You know, there's a couple of quirks with a lot of figures, but usually that's it. And there's always going to be something. There is no perfect figure. Everybody has their holy grail that they think is perfect, but there is no perfect figure. I could always say something about one figure one way or another. So, damn you hussies, I say that as a community we should band together more. We should be talking and discussing more, creating more of a community flow. And in all reality, it should almost be down to a point where Hasbro is coming in and becoming part of this community and having representatives come in and be part of our discussions and be part of our, you know, candor and our wits and our tales of what we expect out of them if we're going to be paying for these figures. If we're going to be paying, you know, $125 for a Hasbro release of Soundwave Masterpiece, and we're going to get the cassettes, we're going to have standards, because if they dumb it down too much and take away too much, then it's not going to be worth it. We would rather buy the Takara one. You know, it's like the US release of MP10. That was a good idea. Just stick to your roots. It may be painted slightly different colors, but essentially it's the same toy. And that's what sells it. That's what people will pay $124 for. But like I said, you know, there's really not much more I want to say on the topic, because I just want to kind of leave it more to the open, because there's always something to fill in. There's always more to be said about the topic. But I have some reviews to do, and I have more discussions to be done. So I will leave it at that. Thank you, Hussies, for a wonderful video. I enjoyed watching it, and Vigadeth, and Dave, and Kal-El Prime, and well, let's just keep going with this. So video responses down below, comments down below, subscribe, rate, comment. Go check out Damn You Hussies, all one word. If you haven't subscribed to him, please go subscribe to him. He's really awesome. I'll put a little link in the doobly-doo down below for you guys, so you feel lazy. I will put a link down for Vigadeth, and I will put down a link for Dave as well, so you guys can go subscribe to them, go listen to their parts of the conversation. The conversation is very fascinating. I enjoy it. Become part of the conversation, because you're part of the community. So, Gajo, peace and out. See you guys later.